I'm Jeff Hathaway, and I'm the founder of Scales Nature Park, which is a conservation facility focused on Canadian reptiles and amphibians. And so here in our nature center, we've got lots of Canadian species, including all the freshwater turtles of Canada. We've got a variety of snakes and also some frogs and salamanders. All these creatures from across the country people can come here and learn about with their families. But we also have nature trails throughout the park and lots of wildlife to see out there as well, including reptiles and amphibians, but also the usual common wildlife species of central Ontario. We see beaver and muskrat in the ponds and in our creek, and turkeys and other things in our forests sometimes. We can't guarantee what you'll see on the trails, but we know that you'll have a fun time walking around and exploring them. And so beyond the work that we do here in the Nature Center, we also do quite a bit of outreach around the province of Ontario. We send teams out to schools and parks and summer camps and all kinds of other venues where they can talk to people about these animals. And that's what we started doing even before the Nature Center was open to the public. We've been open to the public now for over a decade, but even for a decade before that, we would travel around to these places. And we bring the animals and we'll do presentations about them that then allow people to ask questions and learn about the creatures that they might see in their neighborhood. And most importantly, they get a chance to touch and hold some of the animals if they want to. It's always an optional activity, but we bring creatures that are very safe and easy to handle, and the kids usually love it and the adults do too. So for people coming to the center, that's also a great feature. If people want to, everybody who comes gets a chance to touch and hold some of the animals. And we've always found that's a really important and a really big part of what we do. We actually have a database of several thousand students from before and after surveys looking at their knowledge and attitudes towards both snakes and turtles. And what we found as a result of that research was that knowledge scores went up a lot. The children learned about the creatures, but what really changed their attitude scores was whether they touched or held one of the snakes or not. The amount that they learned didn't change, but they became a lot more positive. In fact, it caught up from where it was to being at the same level as turtles. Turtles didn't change their attitude scores much because everybody loved turtles in the before surveys. So the fact is that the opportunity to touch and hold some of these creatures really has a strong role in dispelling myths and in getting rid of people's fears about some of these creatures, which are often very unjustified. They're not dangerous. They're not going to be able to hurt us or anything like that. There's in fact only one reptile in Ontario that has the potential to cause harm to a human, and that's the Massasauga rattlesnake, and it is a species that we work with extensively both in the wild and in captivity. We do have one here at the Nature Center, so you can come here and learn about them and see one firsthand and learn how to tell it apart from the more common species people might see, like the eastern milk snake. People get them confused all the time. And there are many places in Ontario where people report seeing rattlesnakes from where there are no rattlesnakes, and there never have been any rattlesnakes. And what people are seeing are eastern milk snakes, but sometimes also water snakes, hognose snakes, which are a little bit more unusual, and eastern fox snakes, which are quite localized to the Georgian Bay corridor. These are all creatures that people will mistake for rattlesnakes. You can see them all here in our Nature Center or at some of our outreach programs and learn how to tell the difference. But the reality is that the Massasauga rattlesnake isn't doing that well in the wild in Ontario. It's lost a lot of its historic range, and that's part of what we do in the wild, is to monitor their populations in the Muskoka region and in North Simcoe to try to keep an eye on how they're doing and whether they're continuing to lose some of their habitat or not, and how their populations are doing. It's actually a 20-year project that we're only a few years into and still really getting a good handle on where some of these creatures are living in our region. And that's something everybody can help with. We have a hotline people can call, which is 705-955-4284. And if you call that and report a sighting of a rattlesnake or of the turtles like the Blanding's turtle or spotted turtle that are a bit more unusual, although really we'll take any sightings of any reptiles and amphibians if people want to call or text the hotline, but especially the rare species that can really help us with our conservation work across the region. So that's really useful. In terms of the risk level, rattlesnakes aren't really that big a threat to people. People need to keep it in perspective. No one's died for 60 years in Ontario from the bite of a Massasauga rattlesnake. We've had 2 human fatalities in all of recorded medical history. So on the scale of things to be worried about, rattlesnakes are really quite low. But obviously, if you see one, don't pick it up. And if you're hiking around where there might be rattlesnakes, wear shoes. And long pants are a really great idea, especially if you're going off trail. So you follow those basic safety procedures and you really shouldn't have any issues with rattlesnakes anyway. But you know, it's not something that people should be as worked up about as they are sometimes, that's for sure. Sometimes people wonder where our animals in the Nature Center come from, and they also wonder whether they should bring us some animals. So just to let you know, first of all, many of the animals that we have here are born in captivity. They're actually in our collection, and their parents and grandparents and maybe even their great-great-grandparents have been here. We've been working with these animals for about 30 years now, and so many of these are 5 or 6 generations born in our facility. We do get some that are what we call rescues that come from unwarranted circumstances, like somebody has one at home as an illegal pet, that sort of thing. You know, that does happen sometimes, and you know, that's something that people should contact us about if that's a situation that they have. But generally speaking, people can't just like bring us these animals in the same way that we can't just go out and catch them either. We do that for research purposes, and then we let them go again. We can't just go catch an endangered species and bring it here and put it in a tank. That's not how it works. That would be against the law for us, in the same way that it is against the law for everybody else to go and do something like that. So please leave the wild animals where they belong, in the wild, and you know, if it's injured or something like that, that's a different scenario. And everybody, regardless of the law, is allowed to take an animal and move it out of harm's way. If it's like on a road, for example, you're moving it out of the way of immediate harm, that's allowed. But also if it's injured or sick, to transport it to an authorized wildlife custodian, which most people would know is a wildlife rehab center, or to a veterinarian for treatment. That's totally okay. Now, we are connected with an authorized wildlife custodian, so turtles and snakes, and every now and then a toad from someone's backyard that got nicked by a lawnmower or things like that end up coming to us, and that's fine. But please don't go out and catch anything or bring us the thing that you found at the cottage or anything like that. That's really not what we'd like people to do. Leave the wild ones out in the wild, please. So the outreach programs that we have go all year round and go to a wide variety of locations, you know, schools, libraries, parks, daycare centers, just about anywhere you can imagine. We've probably done a presentation about reptiles at it, and that's usually a lot of fun, and we do travel all over southern Ontario for that. Obviously we get more requests from within an hour or 2 drive of Aurelia, but we sometimes go pretty far afield as well, and it's certainly possible to do that. So that's all fun stuff for people to learn about. If they can't make it to our center, we can bring the animals out to you. And especially when large groups are involved, it's almost always more cost effective to bring a box of animals and a couple of presenters than it is to bring busloads of children here. The cost for transporting people is often a real barrier for a lot of groups, and so that's a real challenge these days. So we have that as an option to work around that kind of problem for people as much as we reasonably can. But groups can also come here. Busloads of kids come sometimes to walk the trails and have programs about reptiles and all that sort of stuff. That works great, and obviously allows us to present a whole different raft of programs than what we can simply bring to a school. We can have kids, down at the pond catching tadpoles and that sort of stuff firsthand, which is something a lot of children these days don't get the experience doing, and I think it's something really important to provide kids with that really firsthand contact with nature, which we also do here in the summertime, especially through our day camp program. So we have a program called Reptile Camp, but it's not just about reptiles and amphibians, it's also really about unstructured play in nature, and the kids get to play in the forest in a way that is not feasible in many other facilities, without sort of a bell ringing to signify that it's snack time. Snack time will be done when they're done playing, as opposed to at a specific time on a clock. And we think that's a really useful thing for kids to do, is to have some of that sort of play in nature, and that's something we can offer that other places can't. So it's a pretty cool aspect of the day camp program that is a little different than some other camps. With all the animals in the Nature Center, it's a great place to come on a rainy day. But when the weather's nice, we can also get people outside to the picnic area or out on the nature trails for a walk around, and that's always a great way to spend some time, especially with your family. That works well in the summer and the fall, and the Nature Center is open in the spring as well. So usually from March to October is when our facility is open for tours, with the trails being open in the summer and fall months only. If you'd like to learn more about Canadian reptiles and amphibians, we'd love to see you. So check out our website. You can book a tour of the Nature Center online or inquire about outreach or on-site programming. And I hope everybody takes the opportunity to come and meet some of our creatures.